My grandfather was the first one to start petrochemicals in the country. You didn't have anyone left or right to even learn from. साला जर्मनी में जाके तुम सीखो और कम बैक से ये आइडिया अच्छा है. प्लास्टिक बाल्टीज ये वो सब बनाना, no one built it that time. But you have to feel it. Injection molding. ठीक है, I don't work 16 hours a day. I've never worked 16 hours a day. It's okay. And I don't tell people that that is the definition. You work smart. It's not about the quantity of time you give in or work hard. You work smart, यार. 2 घंटे में काम हो रहा है तो कर लो, 10 घंटे में हो रहा है तो कर लो यार. See, spontaneity is you have it or you don't have it. I think that is something which is a nature. The Tatas, the Ambanis, the Birlas, all these guys grew because someone sitting at the top needed to feel that. They have maybe 25 more meetings with 100 more people sitting in that, giving opinions, but that individual, that visionary that we call it, still needed to feel it. So at the end of the day, it boils down to sharpening your decision making.
Welcome to the second episode of the Lifeboat Season 2. आज के एपिसोड में joining me is an entrepreneur जो सिर्फ बिजनेस की दुनिया में नहीं बल्कि अपनी फैमिली लेगेसी में भी एक मिसाल बन चुके हैं. Priyavrata Mafatlal, a fifth generation entrepreneur of the iconic Mafatlal Group, जो एक ऐसे नाम है जो भारत को डेकेड से इंडस्ट्री को लीड करता आ रहा है. Mafatlal Group सिर्फ एक बिजनेस नहीं है, एक हेरिटेज है. और Priyavrata is not just carrying the legacy forward, but इनोवेटिव तरीकों से एक्सपैंड भी कर रहा है. आज हम उनसे जानेंगे अबाउट हिज एंटरप्रेन्योर जर्नी, एक एंटरप्रेन्योर के माइंडसेट के बारे में, फैमिली के बारे में, उनके बाकी बिजनेसों के बारे में, एंड हाउ ही एनविजन्स द फ्यूचर ऑफ मफतलाल ग्रुप. वो कैसे अपने डाइवर्स बिजनेसेस को मैनेज करते हैं, कैसे हर बिजनेस के लिए सही लोगों को हायर करना उनका फोकस है, और साथ ही ब्रांड डाइवर्सिफिकेशन के पीछे कौन सी सोच है, ये सब हम आज के एपिसोड में समझेंगे. In our conversations, Priyavrata also talks about the value systems, organization culture, and conflict management, and how important all of these are. Also about taking difficult decisions like letting go of people, या फिर intuition और gut feeling से business decisions लेना. And finally, food business का एक नया chapter उनके लिए कैसे unfold हो रहा है, और अपने life के lifeboats वो किन्हें मानते हैं. So get ready for some real, honest and insightful conversations. जो सिर्फ एक सक्सेसफुल बिजनेसमैन की स्टोरी नहीं बल्कि एक ऐसे इंसान की कहानी है जो अपने ऑथेंटिक सेल्फ को लेकर चलता है और अपनी फैमिली बिजनेस और लेगेसी को नए हाइट्स तक ले जा रहे हैं. तो चलिए आज के एपिसोड शुरू करते हैं प्रियव्रत मफतलाल के साथ. Let's dive into the stories that keep you afloat.
So I'm going to start with some very interesting stuff, okay? And the first thing I want to start, and for the sake of our viewers, is a little touchy and yet very unique. The essence of touchy and unique is to say that what happens when one is born with a weightage of a surname.
Yeah.
A lot of people may say, "Yaar, this guy is very lucky, born with a silver spoon, born with a platinum spoon, God knows what, everything's on a platter." And then there's this other facet which a lot of people don't realize, is that you're also born with that same equivalent level of pressure to say that if you are at a level, your duty has to make the level go higher. Everyone knew about Mafatlal as a brand. Everyone knew about what you all are doing, how much impact you guys have created across multiple business ventures. How does it feel being born in a family as a fifth generation? And I would like to use the word entrepreneur because you've built so many things on your own. But for the sake of our viewers, take us through that mindset of if someone is born in a particular situation where there's pressure right from day one to perform, right from day one to be able to create that next level, create that outbreak, create that outlier. How does one deal with it? Does it impact you on a day in, day out basis?
The pressure that you talk about came from people outside the family, right? The family never put the pressure. I remember from the time I was little, I've heard my father tell me 10 times, and he's told me this till as recently as 10, 15 years ago, that even if I don't join the business, it didn't matter to him. And he meant it. He meant it, right? Because he never wanted to put any of us consciously or unconsciously through that pressure, through society, I've heard it, right? Whether it's on the work front, whether it's on the philanthropic front, you know, that big shoes to fill in, big shoes to fill in, big shoes to fill in. At that time, I didn't realize that, you know, I'm being weighed down.
Yeah.
It was as simple an incident which happened about 7 years ago. I had my shoes and my dad's shoes. They were not ons. And it was literally, when I looked at it, a thought hit me saying, he can't wear my shoes because they're small for him. I can't wear his shoes because I'll trip and fall. So why do I have to wear his shoes in life? I can respect his shoes. I can learn from his shoes. But I can't wear his shoes, but nor can he wear my shoes.
Yeah.
So the moment that thought came, it was a monkey off my back. So that's the time I realized that I was carrying that pressure. I didn't realize it because I was very lucky to be isolated from a lot of that. I was, you know, my grandfather, my father, there's a lot of grounding that they've tried to raise us with. The value systems have been very, you know, intact. So that's really helped us just say, yeah, what's the big deal? But then when I look back, if I didn't have that, I would have really been struggling, because I see a lot of my friends, they struggle with that because, and it's no one's fault. It is what it is, right? I mean, you could be the number one cricketer in the world, I'm not going to take names, and your son will struggle. You could be the number one actor in the world, your son will struggle, because you're always compared, right? You have to do this, you have to better.
But you have to better.
The moment I had that eureka moment for me, I don't want to, I mean, it's coming very natural to me. I want to go ahead of them. And I know I can go ahead of them.
And in your own way and
in my own way, because I don't have to do it in his path.
Yeah.
Because his time was different. He as a person is different. My grandfather is different. His time was different. So they can't do what I can do, but I can't do what they can do. And you respect that, right? True. So there's a place for both.
And you forge your path accordingly.
And I think the last 6-7 years, it's impacted my mental state. It's impacted my professional state. It's impacted everything, right? So you asked me that, you know, how are you feeling right now? And I think it's all these little things that have kind of unfolded at the right time, right? You don't look for it, but I guess, you know, it's divine intervention where it just comes at the right time, and then you start finding your path.
You said earlier that there are 5 things you're running right now.
5, 6,
Whatever.
I'm not sure of the number.
I like the way you said that. I'm not sure of the number.
I'm not sure.
But that's also a privilege, by the way. You know, you should respect that. I'm not sure the number of businesses I'm running.
The thing is, some are so small, they've not reached a level where
you want to count that it's running.
Yeah, so that's why I'm kind of like merging it. So 5 are like individuals, and then you can add a few more. So if you add a few more, then
talk about those 5. What are they?
So one is the flagship company, Mafatlal Industries. That's we're nearing 120 years this January. So, but my grandfather told, he used to say this, that after you hit 100 years, it's your rebirth. So we're actually only 20 years old.
Yeah.
Then there's Norstar, which is India's largest in rubber chemicals. Then we have Get Set Learn, which is in the edtech space. Then you have Rattech, which is in the IT solution space. We have Earth Cafe, which is the restaurant business. And then we've got a bunch of other things that are either part of these or small, and we're not sure if it'll be separate.
I like the way you're getting embarrassed saying it, but it's okay. I like the way you
I've actually never count. No one made me count though. Like that's
everything different happens in the Lifeboat. So now let's go a little bit on something interesting, right? Of all of these, I want to pick a couple of them which are very new age. The purpose again is to ask you some questions for people who want to do that business to be able to learn.
Yeah.
I know Earth Cafe you started as a passion project during COVID. And today it's, growing in a beautiful manner. I think you have 4 outlets.
Yeah.
5th one is coming out very close to my office.
Just a point of disclaimer, it was started by my partner and I've joined him. Okay. So shout out to Vic.
Shout out to him. What's his name?
Vic Katwani.
Okay, we'll put his picture up somewhere here.
Don't put a heart on it. That's
no
all.
Heart, man. You can put all the heart there. Let's go a little bit on this to say that a lot of people talk about food business being one of the toughest business.
Yeah.
In fact, extremely difficult to crack. If I had to ask you in very simple terms that I want to start a food business, a cafe, what are the 4-5 fundamental things that I should keep in mind to be able to say that yes, this is the next step of trying to sustain it and grow? You've seen it. You and your partner have managed to grow from 1 to now 4, opening one very close to my office, which I'm very happy about. But going down a bit on this business now, talk a bit about F&B, talk a bit about the food business to say that if I wanted to go across and start a cafe, what are those 4-5 things that I should keep in mind? What are the things that actually will come and bite me the most? Or what are the things that will create that biggest challenge for things to shut down and therefore protect myself from those aspects? Take us through a little 360-degree spectrum of this business.
There's only two things. There's no 4 or 5.
Okay.
Service followed by food.
Take us a little bit through that.
You're in the service industry. If our service is poor, you will never come back. However good the food is, however good the decor is, it doesn't matter. If you have a bad experience, you will struggle to come back. That's why I said followed by food, because when you come there and you have a good experience, you enjoy the food, you will come back. There's no third rule.
Don't both go hand in hand?
Not necessarily, because if I focus on the food and I don't focus on the service as much, you will say, I like the food, I'm not going there because I had a bad time. But if you have a great experience, you were remembered, you were made to feel personal, right? The whole thing went seamless and the food complemented it, you will come back. So food, I would give I'll put it one step below service.
Interesting.
Because if we can't crack the service thing, there is no business. There is no third thing in this. I mean, however more we can make it elaborate, and those are business plans and things like that. The crux is, if we can crack the service, the way you're spoken to when you enter, the way and see, upar niche hota hai, right? You will never have a seamless thing. But broadly, do you go back feeling happier than when you came in? It's a simple thing, right? Your perceived value as a diner, as a customer, the perceived value of the experience should always be more than the actual value. Then you don't think, I paid this much, I didn't pay this much. Those are all secondary. But if you had a good time, the staff was good to you, the food was good, you enjoyed the ambience, the company, everything starts adding up.
So you're saying it's a compounding impact.
It's always a compounding impact.
Let's take a step forward to saying that now Earth Cafe has 4 outlets. Tomorrow 5, 6, 8.
Yeah.
How do you maintain consistency of this quality of service that you're talking about?
And food.
See, food, I think we would still be able to.
Yeah.
Because that's more
SOP
centralized,
related.
that's more SOP oriented. But service is very personal, right? You may have your trainings done. You may have your SOPs to say all the managers of those particular outlets have that particular, to-dos as such. But it's also very individualistic.
100%. Right? And you'll see the biggest difference in that is when Vic was running only the first unit. And the thing is, I was a customer to Earth Cafe. Then Vic and I became friends. And that's how we have joined hands to grow. The thing is, we can't put Vic on every table.
True.
In every restaurant. True. And we can't expect that can be replicated. So, my family will say, "Arey, wo din kaise the, ab alag hai." I said, but that's the change. We got so used to someone coming and making us feel ki yaar ye ghar hai. And he did it to everyone. But you can't, that is the personal aspect that comes very naturally. There are people in the team who are adapting that to their own best ability, right? So, but we can't say ki it's the same shoe concept we started with. We can't say everyone has to wear the same shoe. The idea is
again the culture trickling down.
The idea is the same. The idea is the same. We want to achieve that, but you do it. You be natural. We'll give you services. Why is it that Indian airlines emanating from India or hotels will always do better? Because for us as Indians, service comes very normal, and then you add the training.
Yeah.
Then you get the Oberois of the world, then you get the Tajes of the world, you get the Jets of the world, right? Those are brands which it's enviable across the world from a experience point of view.
Perspective.
So same thing applies here, and see, this is something I'm learning, because for me, when you're running a corporate, you run it in a certain way. Your process is this, that. This is very different. People come, people go, 200 rupees, people will leave. I don't understand that world. But I can't say that I will change your world to say that because these processes work in all of my organizations, I'm going to do it here. Oh, industry alag hai. If I come and say...
it will be bespoke.
Correct. It has to be. So those are the differences that you allow each company to grow in its own culture under the large umbrella of value system that we have created. But you can't say that the same value system you'll find in an IT company will be the same as a textile company. अलग है.
अलग है.
Obviously, and अलग रहना चाहिए.
But core DNA somewhere match करेगा.
See, what is it? I mean, at the end of the day, service emanates from relationships only, no? Or relationships are caused because of service.
Absolutely.
So they go hand in hand. वो अपना DNA वही है ना. So these are small things, but you give it in a different avatar. Otherwise, if you say कि यार मतलब ये ही green shirt सबको fit होगा, नहीं होगा ना. I want a different color, I want a different size, and they should be okay with it. बस कपड़े पहनो.
True. You know, the other bit that comes across from this is also to say that it's so important in a services industry to be receptive.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think has always worked well, and if you look at it even from a professional services business, it is a services industry.
But VB, sorry if I can jump in.
Yeah.
I don't think today anyone makes products.
Yeah.
There is no product company in the world. There's a service company. Think about it. Like you may sell products, but if as a customer you're not happy with the price, you're not happy with the way the dealers treated you, it boils down to it's an experience.
You know, one of the biggest learnings that a lot of fellow entrepreneurs have told me is a lot of decisions are based on gut.
Yeah.
A lot of decisions are based on impulse. A lot of decisions are based on what they feel at that point of time,
Yeah.
which in old school businesses may be completely a no-go. Because there was never space for impulse, there was never space for gut, there was never space for intuitive feelings.
Yes and no.
So I want you to
Yeah.
get a little deep into
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Because you're blessed to see both lenses.
Yeah.
Very few people have the privilege of seeing a 120-year-old mindset and maybe a 1.5 or a 2-year-old
Absolutely.
mindset. Right?
Absolutely.
A lot of times, and you said beautifully, yes or no. So I want you to go a little deeper
Yeah.
to say that as an entrepreneur, for the sake of our viewers, how much of credence do you give to intuition? How much of credence do you give to an intuitive essence of a decision? That decision could be a sale, that decision could be an acquisition, that decision could be a partner, that decision could be a firing, hiring, it doesn't matter. At times that DNA, at times that essence of that situation calls out to you. I personally believe that at the older it is, the more SOP oriented, the newer it is, more essence oriented it is. But take us a bit through someone who's blessed with both these visions. For the sake of our viewers, how much of importance and credence do you give to intuitiveness?
So, I mean, there's a lot of research that says that we, in a span of a 24-hour day, as adults, we make up to 35,000 decisions a day. Most of them are so subconscious, we don't even realize. But it ranges from kya pehna hai, kya khana hai, to decisions which will financially, emotionally, and socially impact people.
Yeah.
Right? So you have the examples you gave are probably at the other end, which are you have to obviously, give it a lot more thought.
Yeah.
You can't say कि I woke up today अच्छा दिन है, आज बारिश नहीं आ रहा, I'm going to buy a company. Right? That can be the intent, but then there's a lot of work goes into it.
Your neighbor.
But
you can decide.
But there's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's the same actor concept we said.
Yeah.
We see the outcome.
Yeah. You don't see the
I
back
woke
end.
up today, hona hai. But you don't see the work, that the years of effort that they've put into the team to identify things. They become quicker in identifying things.
जो दिखता है वो बिकता है.
Bas. So, see, spontaneity is you have it or you don't have it. I think that is something which is a nature. Now, today, you still need to feel it in your stomach like you did 50 years ago. Right? All these guys grew. The Tatas, the Ambanis, the Birlas, all these guys grew because someone sitting at the top needed to feel that. He'll have maybe 25 more meetings with 100 more people sitting in that, giving opinions, But that individual, that visionary that we call it, still needed to feel it. So today also, it's the same, right? When a startup guy, it's only when the startup guy does it for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you'll call him a visionary or her a visionary.
Yeah.
But the idea is the same. You need to feel it in your stomach. I'm feeling it. I'm going to do it. I'm not going based on all the information and the parameters that I know of. So at the end of the day, it boils down to sharpening your decision making. right? You're making 34,000 decisions in a day. You need to ensure that the ones that impact others or yourself in a very large way needs to be to the best of our ability from a knowledge perspective, and then you have to live with your decision. सही है तो सही है, गलत गलत, we'll learn
and
from
be
it.
accountable for your decision.
And be accountable. We can't run away from it, right? I've taken this call, सही हुआ, great, नहीं हुआ, can I fix it? Yes, no. If I can't fix it, ठीक है, let's finish it. Move on. That's the learning. But there is no, so again, I think it's only the way of feeling intuitive has changed. Today, because life is a lot faster as a startup, right? Startups become upstarts very, very quickly. And because their journey is this,
And it's exponential.
because of that, you see number, and then it's backed by the fact that everything's covered on social media. You'll see splash on, I bought this for 200 million, 500 million. So you see that. Back in the day, the growth was like this. You didn't have social media to aid that and amplify it. But it boils down to the same thing कि वो decisions जब लेना है, you have to feel it. When you're moving from textiles to chemicals, it's not even remotely close.
Completely.
My grandfather was the first one to start petrochemicals in the country. You didn't have anyone left or right to even learn from. साला जर्मनी में जाके तुम सीखो और come back saying ये idea अच्छा है. Plastic balties, ये वो सब बनाना, no one built it that time. But you had to feel it.
Injection molding.
Today it's amplified because the world is much faster.
Yeah.
You're much closer.
And information access is there. Yeah? That
Exactly.
itself is so
But you need to feel
large.
it at the end of the day. And once you commit to ये मुझे करना है, based on what I have been informed, based on
So you were giving a lot of importance to intuitiveness, but you're saying that at the end of the day, when you feel it, also be accountable for it, irrespective of the repercussion.
120%.
You can't say आज दिल क्या
120%.
कर लिया, but tomorrow as a result we say no.
नहीं आज दिल हुआ तो किया तो अच्छा है, but अच्छा हुआ कि नहीं हुआ, you have to live by
You
that.
live by it.
You have to live by that.
The advantage of running so many different, I won't use the word just organizations, but let's say so many different businesses, allows you another very interesting opportunity which a lot of people don't have. All these businesses, other than the age-old ones, I'm not going into the really, really family business now because that's a very different mindset as a fifth-generation entrepreneur.
Funnily in that, that's probably the most disruptive right now.
Okay, so we'll
being
talk about
120 years old,
So-
being in the textile old school, where because you have to keep updating
Reinventing.
yourself, reinventing aspects of your business.
And we're going to go into that as well, especially when it's so old and how do you resurrect and reinvent. But coming to this point, each of the other businesses is where you're partnered with someone.
Yeah.
Now here comes the beauty. You actually have multiple co-founders in different businesses.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges in this space has been to identify correct co-founders.
Yeah.
A lot of our viewers are in that stage, at that age, where they're trying to figure out whether they want to do it on their own as a solopreneur or whether they want to go across and identify a co-founder.
Yeah.
And therefore, what are those character traits that come in? How do you know who's the right co-founder? What are the ticks in the boxes? You're a person who's actually got the experience of looking at different businesses with different people and therefore looking at perceptions and perspectives of different co-founders. Take us a bit through, for the sake of our viewers, to say that if one needs to choose a co-founder, and I want you to outline 3 this time specifically, because I'm giving you the number.
I give very
Every
vague
time,
answers.
every time you,
escape.
every time you escape the numbers. But take us through 3 learnings from your journey as to say that these are the 3 qualities that you must look for if you want a co-founder, and that these are the 3 qualities that, irrespective of where you think the person can be a co-founder, if those 3 essences are being shown, then you should not partner. So the positives and the negatives. So for the sake of our viewers, take us through and advise them that if I have to choose a co-founder and if I want Priyavrata as a co-founder, what are the 3 qualities that will impress Priyavrata enough to say he's the right guy for me? And what are those 3 things that will make Priyavrata run away and say, irrespective of anything, I don't think co-founder status is to something that I can live with?
No, so see, the thing is, it's very similar to when you're looking to date or when you're looking to get married. In one sense, it's a commitment, right? It's your work commitment. So what do you look for? You look for firstly the friendship, right? You want to be able to communicate with that person. You want to be able to share your thoughts, your heart, and you want the other person to take it in the spirit you're saying, right? Because of that, you want to be compatible. You don't have to like everything,
Yeah.
and you
You're
don't
not
have
supposed to
dislike.
like everything.
You're not exactly right. You can have your own likes. I can have my, it's better that way, right? But compatible of thoughts. कि
Yeah.
ये vision है. So at home you want compatibility where you all do things together despite it could be
Yeah.
your preference over mine, but we'll do it together, and that leads to compatibility, right? Every day, if I'm going to do my thing, my partner's going to do her thing.
Yeah.
How will you last the years?
Yeah.
So similarly at a workplace, you want that to come in, that we want to come in and we both want to build this vision together. There are aspects of the vision you haven't seen, I will try and bring in. There are aspects of the vision I can't see, you'll try and bring in, and we'll build a common vision, right? Right. And the third thing is you want to communicate, you want to be compatible, which one leads to the other. And you want the other person to not lose their individuality.
Yeah.
You don't want someone to basically become, if there are 4 co-founders, for example, you don't want all of them to think the same. They all come in with certain strengths. They
have to be complementary to each other.
Exactly. So you don't want to lose that individuality. These, I'd say, are the reason why I'm drawing similarities to a relationship, because that's we've always been in.
It is a relationship.
It is a relationship.
In fact, you'll spend more time with your co-founder than your
Exactly.
spouse or your partner.
But what happens is, invariably people look at these questions very differently.
Yeah.
Like ghar pe I'll select this way, but co-founder, their process, it's not. It's the same thing. What would make me run away personally is, apart from the fact that any of these 3 don't check out, right? That would make me. But other than that is where there's no transparency, where there's no ability to shoot straight. Bolo na yaar, matlab tell me what you feel. Because what happens is, if you're going to keep it in, you'll tell someone else, you'll tell someone. Bol do na, I'm a mature individual. Yeah. If worst case, what? We'll argue, we'll fight, we'll figure a solution out. But if you're not going to tell me what you feel, you'll have to tell someone. So you'll go tell someone. First you will tell someone at home. It doesn't impact me. Then you will tell someone in the office. Then that's where the politics start. When when the husband and wife are fighting, the whole organization can feel it.
Beautiful. I call it the 1 feet syndrome. So why 1 foot syndrome as a concept comes in? So we have this in our firm, between our partners, right? Agar zehen mein hai, to zuban mein hai.
Lovely.
Difference is the 1 feet. From here, if it doesn't come out here, if it goes here, is where the complication starts. So agar zehen mein hai, to zuban mein hona chahiye.
Absolutely.
And that is exactly what you're saying, because if you can talk it out, you may fight, you may shout, you may scream, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, you will finish that issue that day and take it forward.
Be constructive. No?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I use the same principles even for people I don't have to select. So my current CEO in the textile business is someone who's been in the organization for 30 years. He was playing different roles.
Right.
We elevated him to a CEO 2 years ago. But it's the same thing we do. When both of us are in a room of people, we've not spoken about this, but it's just become something that only one of us will be the alpha. And then we will take it offline. Because in a large organization, you're looking for things. Arey, MD, CEO ka thoda wo fight chal
You
raha
need
hai.
that crack in the mirror.
Yeah. The moment there's one this thing, now then the whole thing spreads. So it's just become something that, if I'm going on a particular track, if I'm giving feedback, or I'm firing someone, or I'm appreciating someone, there's no counter argument at that time.
Right.
You take it offline. Yeah. True. I'm not sure if I agree this, that, and all. So it's just become like
Innately baat kar lo aap.
We use similar aspects when you choose or when you want to maintain relationships. And it goes hand in hand, right? The moment you can communicate with your partner, communication is everything. The moment you can communicate, the compatibility comes. No? And compatibility, this is more relationship, but you can use it even in a workplace. And my definition of compatibility is very different. I think, over the years, over the decades, it's become very fancy, and a lot of the Western culture, traditional Western culture will be like, oh, we're not compatible, so we're parting ways. But compatibility is that morning, you and me are going to wake up and say we're going to give 101% to the day.
Correct.
To today.
Correct.
Kal ka kal dekhenge. Kal jo hua.
True, bhai.
Today,
Absolutely.
the day I give 101 and you give 95, thoda gap aayega. You do that for 5 days, 10
Gap
days,
badhta jayega.
20 days.
It's called the deficit.
Bas. So it's a very simple thing.
Comes down to compatibility, comes down to transparency, comes down to communication. I think these are the 3 pillars in everything.
Simple.
That's the best part. You know, you're like this painter who's been blessed with multiple canvases. Why? Because you have multiple businesses that you're looking at, taking care of, partnering with, at the helm of, and you keep learning from different aspects and try and give that back as well. This same mindset that you started with, where you said that the day you realize that the shoes don't need to fit, they can be individual shoes, they can be individual sizes, but it's about the journey, it's about discovering the distance, and you can cover the distance in that. When you take that individualistic mindset and put it out in an entrepreneur's mindset, and for the sake of our viewers, the question that I would like to ask you is that if, let's say, some of our viewers may be dabbling with multiple projects, trying to say, okay, this is also great, this is also great, this is also great. They may not have the platform, they may not have the comfort, they may not have the backing at times, but they still have that zeal, that intent. Now, there are two lines of thoughts here. One line of thought is very linear to say that, gosh, focus on only one thing, build it and build it so big so that that really counts. The other mindset is that, okay, it's absolutely okay to diversify. It's absolutely okay to have varied interests. They're very contradictory, both these mindsets. If you look at it from an investor's perspective, the mindset is going to be very different. If you look at it as a creator's mindset, it's going to be very different. When you take this, you know, this whole thought of yours to say, I will charter my own path, I will create my own path, and then you look at multiple aspects, what's your advice to various entrepreneurs who are trying to dabble with things? How do you keep yourself still focused on all of it and hopefully still be able to build those simultaneously? May not be at the same level, some may be fantastically ahead, some may not. What's the calibration of mindset according to you?
So I think each one's journey is very different. In my situation, for example, I've realized that, so I don't think one or many is the right way to look at it. It's, for me, I know right now, and we spoke about this earlier, I'm taking a pause from starting anything new because now we've got 5 or 6, and I think that for me right now, that's enough so that I can take it to the next level. Then we'll build something after some time, right? So because I realized that my time involvement, the quality of my time, the quantity, all of that differs for each individual organization. If you're a 65-year-old mature organization, you need very little of my time. It's an 18-year-old kid. You just need, the kid needs to know you're there, right? I also have a 120-year-old organization. Despite the age, it became a child, because the older you get, you become like a child, right? So there, I was actually roped in for day to day. So the moment I was actually running it day to day, I didn't start anything at the same time, right? The moment I could take a step back, have someone else, make sure the processes are in place. Processes are key for everything. SOPs, process, you know, all of that, right? In that, this is how we will operate. This is my reporting. This is the mechanism, and whatever works for you as individuals, right? So now I realize that since I'm not running anything day to day, because I have either a COO or a CEO running my organizations, I can balance 5 or 6 at the same time. But I felt from earlier this year, I said, now I don't want to add a 7 because I would then start compromising on my involvement. But, you know, for many, as you said, it can be a complete contrast of thought, saying that, you know, I also had a platform for many. Right? I didn't start all. I had to run some, I had to monitor some, and I had to start some. So your mindset for all three are different. And I think the more I look at it, it's very similar to the value system that was in the group. From my grandfather's time, it was only about how do you diversify, what else can you do. See, you have one brand name. Where can you leverage it against? It's not that if you're known for textiles, you'll only be known for textiles. So then you can't be the first or the largest if that mindset is there.
True.
The DNA has been to
try different things and
try different things. You work, many don't work. In fact, I'd say most don't work, right? But those are where the learnings come. That's where you try and minimize the pain points in every learning, you know, whether it's financial, whether it's emotional, but you have to go through that.
You said something very interesting, you know, you talked about the fact that because you had in certain businesses a CEO, some of the CXOs operating in a particular manner, you could take a step back and look at something else differently because you're so right. Starting someone versus running something versus looking at something, overseeing something, very different mindsets, very different bandwidths. But there's a very important take that you spoke about, which is the L1. A lot of them would be in that position to say that I want to hire the next L1s. I want to see who those people are, because you're as strong as your team is,
Yeah.
or you're as weak as your,
The weakest link.
link.
Yeah.
So for me, the whole thought process is always about the team. Today, if I can sit here, indulge in this passion project of mine, be able to meet my dear friends like you and have this wonderful chat, is also because at the back end, I have a fantastic team being able to help me run the law firm the way I do.
Yeah.
And if Vertices wasn't running the way it is, I wouldn't be able to build Lifeboat the way I am.
Correct.
So it's always about the team, right? But running 5 different businesses is not easy without the right set of team. So no one can be better than you to guide in terms of a question, to say what is the right way, and is there a right way to identify those L1s when you hire and when you want to make those hires. For the sake of our viewers, what are the ticks in the boxes for you to say that this character traits or these aspects, if someone is showcasing, it's an absolute immediate hire, versus what are the red flags? The resume might be brilliant, but these are the character traits which I just saw, and under no circumstances should I go across and have that person in, because you've had this experience. So take us through Priyavrat's mindset of hiring the L1s. What are the to-dos and what are the not to-dos?
For us personally, I think culture is a very big starting point. You could be the brightest kid from the best university with the most amazing resume, but if there's a cultural misfit, I think it's a non-starter. And it doesn't mean my culture is better than your culture. It just means that if we have a culture that's working for us, I don't want it's a harsh one, but one rotten apple to come in. However, it could be New Zealand apple and a crunchy apple, but if it's not going to fit the basket, it's going to be a big red flag for me. There's no way to identify that. You can have n number of interviews, you can have your background checks and all, but at the end of the day, when you have to trust them. If you can't trust them, there's a big problem again, right? So one of the organizations where I was brought in, the textile piece. So again, I was inheriting legacy business, legacy team, but there were senior people in the organization that I didn't think I could trust. And it's not like they were bad at their job, but you need that wavelength with someone. And if I'm going to build my team, I need to trust my team, right? So over the next few years, we did have to part with some people, replace some people at strategic points, because I needed the team around me. I needed to be the team that I can be open with and I can trust, to the point that I can trust them to do the work in my absence. I can trust them to do the work in my presence the same way. So unfortunately, there isn't a one size fits all. Me personally, I don't get swayed by resumes as much as the
DNA.
You need to talk to the person. You need to feel the person's
fitment.
vibe. You need to, even Zoom calls don't do that, right? We could have done this on Zoom. Why are we sitting in? Because you need to feel the person's energy. You need to feel that we're humans. We are, by nature, we are social.
The fabric and the feel is very important.
Yeah.
So I want to take two. These are such relevant points, and there's so much of depth that you can actually deal with it. You spoke about a very interesting element, saying that culture is everything.
Yeah.
And you also said something very beautifully, which is again a lot of maturity to outline, saying that somebody else's culture may not be yours.
Correct.
And your culture may not be there. So it's not about right or wrong, it's about the fitment, it's about the DNA.
Absolutely.
In an organization, culture flows 2 ways.
Yes.
There's a concept where it's called the trickle-down culture, which is the age-old construct of saying that the owners, the leaders, the bosses, how they've shaped things up, it trickles down and it sways into the organization and builds that DNA of the organization. And there's a new age construct called the trickle-up culture, which is where a lot of new age people who are the disruptors, who are trying to create something different, and you're hiring them for those disruptions, are trying to also shake up that old thought process and maybe the not so new age thought process. And therefore, there are 2 things that happen. One, at times there is a beautiful blend of both and an amalgamation of culture, and that becomes very healthy. But on a larger occasion, so many occasions that I have seen, it also creates this interesting conflict.
Yeah.
As someone who's a founder, who's an entrepreneur, who's dealt with so many situations, if you had to describe to our viewers on culture conflict management, Give us some instances of how one can do that.
Yeah.
How important is this essence of a trickle down and a trickle up culture?
Yeah.
And how does one try and ensure that there's amalgamation for the health of the organization?
Correct.
Because coexistence is extremely important.
Correct.
जब आप साथ रहोगे, दो चीज हो सकता है. एक, a beautiful music can also be created and you can jam together.
Yeah.
या फिर बर्तन की तरह आप बहुत सारे खटखटा सकते हो and there can be a lot of noise.
Yeah.
The leader's job is to ensure that there is music within the noise.
Yeah.
So how do you blend that across? Take us through a little bit of that
Yeah.
culture management mindset.
So, in my opinion, values are non-negotiable.
Go granular.
For us, our value system dates back from the time I remember, or much beyond that.
Yeah.
Right? It's a 100-year-old system.
Yeah.
And I think those don't need to change. Value system of, you know, respecting relationships, whether they're internal, external, right? Those don't have to change with the startup culture or the old culture. The value system of saying that I'm going to respect individuals more than I will respect my balance sheet, right?
That's so deep.
But what has moved over time is, if I leave it there, the context at that time, this worked. Today, I will say, not to the extent that the individual can hamper the balance sheet. So accountability cannot be lost.
True.
Right? So you can always, in the past, you can get away with only the first part of the line. Today, you need to add the second part.
True.
So you're only tweaking the value system to adapt to the scenarios and the surroundings today. But I'm not changing the value system. The value system of wanting to be a disruptor, right? It's there in the blood. I have a choice to say nahi karna hai, but I also have a choice ki hai blood mein, to I will do it, right? So some value systems I feel has got nothing to do with old and new.
Yeah.
Coming to the culture, now culture is if you're not updated, you're outdated. So that implies even with the fact that today the needs are different.
Yeah.
You know, kids today will not typically spend 30 years in an organization. They will spend lesser.
Yeah.
But that because they're spending only 2, 3, 4 years with you, they have different needs. They have different wants. They don't want to save, they don't want a house, but they want other things, right?
Experiences.
It's about understanding that.
Correct.
So rather than saying that this is how we have operated, this is how we will operate. Right? The moment you come with that rigid mindset, it's very difficult to have that blend. Right? We are lucky because you have a startup in the group and you have a century-old company in the group. So we don't need to look outside. The older company now, or the older companies which are beyond 10 years and more, they are learning from the startups how to be disruptive. How not only how the people are, but how we need to be nimble in our thought process. And you can't replicate it. But you can learn things that, nimbleness is a value that we can inculcate. Now, nimbleness for a older company and nimbleness for a startup may look different, but the idea is still nimbleness. Similarly, the startup will learn from the older one that valuation is based on two things: top line and bottom line. You cannot change that. Business you're doing, if you're in the space of business, and if you're in the space of making money, you have to make money bottom line. Period. There is not ki you've spent how many minutes with me and this. So the startups learn compliance from the older ones. Yeah. The importance of having those relationships, because again, think of it as a young kid spending time with the grandfather. That the grandfather will also say ki अरे आजकल क्या हो रहा है school में. But then the kid will also say that अरे दादाजी, learn this on Instagram, learn this. So both are taking a step forward, saying, listen, I don't know your world, but you don't know my world as well, right? So that's why you'll see grandparents and grandchildren have always got along, because a lot of stories, and grandparents will always want to know ki school mein kya ho raha hai, ye kya ho raha hai. Same logic happens here.
In fact, there's a beautiful adage. They say that you can't make elephants dance, but you definitely can use them to move the logs.
Correct.
So that's the essence of the coexistence. Now with the power of social media, you suddenly get articles saying so and so's laid off, so and so 1,000, 100, etc. And of course, trolling, bashing, all of that comes across. But no one goes into that mindset of that individual entrepreneur who had that vision to build X, Y, Z, and then realize that out of the people he was building, And there are two types, right? There is a requirement at times of a layout basis growth trajectory of a company. I'm not going there.
Yeah.
That is very different. If the company can't afford it, you can't have the person. Take us a little through that mindset of how do you let go, and how do you do it easily? How do you do it without
kuch nahi hai.
whether it is easy or not? Second is, if it's not easy,
Yeah.
how do you still manage to do it that
Yeah.
you know at the end of the day you did the right for the organization and you can sleep peacefully, even though a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old guy may look in your eye and cry and say that you took the job away.
Yeah.
It's deep.
It's due.
But how do you go across and get that decision done? Because a lot of our viewers would be in that catch-22. What's your take? What's your advice?
So, it's at the end of the day, we're dealing with humans. We have to give them as much support as we can to align with our thought process, with our vision. If we're being able to do that, it's a win-win. If we're not being able to do that, that's when difficult conversations come in. Now, there will be, in a journey of an organization, there will be times where you've hired people to begin with, and maybe some people, perhaps their impact is limited because for the next phase, they may not have it in them to take the next big leap with you. And it's got nothing to do with that. That individual is competent at the time you needed that individual. So there could be situations like that where you have to ask someone to let go, or you let go of someone because you feel that for the next phase of the organization or the next phase of growth or next phase of the journey, I will need a different mindset, a different caliber, right? But we need to first ask ourselves, have we articulated where we want to go, how we want to go, right? It's very easy to say, we have a vision statement, things like that. But now I'll give you one of our examples. Now, before I got into active management, you're being groomed as a promoter, so you see things afar.
Yeah.
You look at things from a board level. You give a vision, you give, and then you give them support. You have professional management running things. And at that point, when management will come and say, this one's not working, this one, in my head I was thinking, not working, fire. It's only when I actually took active management, I became a day-to-day CEO, I realized it's easy to say fire. Firstly, does the individual know what is their requirement? What is their true job description? What is it that we need from them?
Yeah.
Most of the times we think we think they know it, but they don't know it. Yeah. I will tell you, you have 5 people reporting into you. You will just give one common line and you'll assume that they know it. But have you actually taken the time to understand whether that individual knows their role or not? One, if they know it, right, and if they're not being able to adapt to it, have we as an organization done everything in our power to train them or get them up to speed to understand what is expected, right? And
the opportunity.
Correct. And then only after you've done step A and step B,
if that has also failed,
then we part ways. When you take this journey, you realize that you actually filter most of the people out.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, not delivering, you've not hit your last year's number, sales, you're out.
And that's never the way.
But people, and that's where the hard part comes.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with humans, right? Then if you're confident of step A and step B, right, then it should not be a matter of conscience, because you should be able to tell the individual, listen, this is what was expected. This is something that you're not delivering on. Maybe I'm going to give you 6 more months, right? But that conversation needs to happen, which is the hard one. Letting go is actually not as hard as having that conversation, especially when the other person doesn't agree with you.
Yeah.
Hey, I've delivered. Look at my numbers. I'm the best. And that's when, see, if it's a one-way conversation, it's easy.
Yeah.
You're not delivering on your numbers, you have 6 months. There's no two-way.
Correct.
The moment you reply saying, no, but I disagree. And then you have to sit and explain to them that, listen, this is why I think you disagree. And that is, as leaders, we have only one role, and that is handling people.
Absolutely. And that also with the essence of empathy, because empathy is the biggest tool.
100%.
People don't realize that.
You spoke about elderly people, in 50s and 60s. Now, this is a personal moment, but I had a president of mine who was nearing 60. And I allowed an environment to be created where he was weeping. He was weeping because he felt he was not delivering and this and that. And so sometimes it's not a cookie cutter thing for everyone, right?
Never.
But I realized that he was an emotional person. So I let him be in his comfort space. Some people don't react to emotions very. So it's the way we deal with our fathers, our mothers, our sisters, our spouses, our kids, they're all different because each individual is different. We are different. Same with organization. I think it's not rocket science. We make it complicated. You're dealing with people. You have to allow two-way communication to happen.
It's simple and yet not so simple. I mean, I wish people would understand that empathy plays such an important card to it, because it's always about creating that atmosphere for the person to realize the value of either being there or even at times not being.
We don't speak about EQ or empathy as much as we should. We think it's weak. But it's actually not.
We actually mistake it for a sign of weakness. That's the
vulnerability is not weak, actually. Vulnerability is
I think vulnerability is your biggest strength.
It's your biggest strength.
If you've created a situation where a man can feel comfortable enough to cry, I think that itself is a big statement. It's a big show of strength. In some of the earlier discussions, you also outlined about the power of social media. And how everything is out in the face, how everything is a multiplier effect because of social media, how people have access. Like people have access to information, people also have access to fame. People also have access to PR. People also have access to eyeballs. In new age business, unfortunately, a lot of times more than the business, there are other news which are celebrated. Whether it's a capital raise, whether it's some kind of an acquisition, whether it's some kind of a personal development, all of those.
It's sensational.
Sensational, yeah. Clickbaity hai, ho sakta hai. What it also does is, after a point of time, it creates that hubris in the mind. Why I ask this? Because I believe this is extremely relevant in today's world. And your advantage has been that you have evolved in an atmosphere. And that atmosphere has been so brilliant to say that it's been a brand itself. So you've gone beyond the essence of what normal, coverage would be. It's very easy for you to go across and get the leverage of coverage, as I call it. If you have to guide and explain to a lot of our young viewers who are in that cusp of newly found validation, and that validation could just be temporary, but when it reaches the mind and it starts creating the hubris, it starts a different approach to people, starts a different conversation with people. How does one do hubris management in the mind? How does one maintain sanity in the face of temporary validation, which is so easy today? What's your advice to our viewers? You've seen a lot of it. You've seen a lot of it with your partners. You've seen a lot of it with your friends. How do you stay sane?
This is a question, I guess, people have built careers around being life coaches, and everyone's still trying to figure it out, because I don't think we've figured it out. But from my perspective, listen, it's difficult to not get sucked into it, right? It's just about...
But you avoided it considerably.
With a lot of effort, and it comes down to your ecosystem. If you can keep people around you who know you at your lows and they know you at your highs, and they treat you the same, that's very humbling, right? मैं घर पे...
But that will only be family and old friends, na Baba?
But that's very important.
But that's your lifeboat. There's no doubt about it.
Because what happens is मैं घर पे, मेरे पास 4 CEO हैं, मैं कोई नहीं हूँ घर पे, and I'm happy to say this. Between my wife and my 3 daughters, they run my life, and I'm happy like that, because that is the ground. What is the point? मैं office में see you, यहाँ office see you. It's not, doesn't work like that. But it's very difficult to say that, it's a daily kind of effort that we need to put in, that the means and the end need to be identified, right? If you're working towards the means as the end, the fame, the money, the power, if that is the end, then that is the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Complete end.
Because, there's a nice book, Discover Your True North.
Yeah.
Right? And they take it up as a 5-day program at Harvard as well, only on this book, that you find your Norstar, whatever it is, your value system, your ecosystem, whatever it is, you discover it, you anchor there. Yeah. That is your end. And whatever comes, you don't shy away from
the means.
You don't shy away from, because then it's unauthentic.
Correct.
RI, you take it. So, but it's easier said in a room like this, right? But every single day, when you're seeing that, take the example. I mean, when the Indian team just won the World Cup, to see millions of people on the streets when you're in that bus, that is humbling. But that kick you cannot replicate. You and me will not know what
We'll
that
not know
feels
what that
like.
feels.
They live every day like that, right? So how they go through it would be much, much, much at a probably higher level than perhaps what I have to deal with. But the principle is the same, that you do what works for you. Now, I mean, we both know cricketers and superstars and actors who have their own way of dealing with things, right? Either they'll try and, if it gets too much, they'll try and move to a different country, or they'll kind of, spend time with their friends and family in private, or they'll read, or they'll listen to, different podcasts that balance it out. But it's not key. I figured it out. Every single day, you want to put that effort the same way you want to put that effort in your self-respect and looking in the mirror saying it all starts from there. You want to every day put that effort in relationships that matter to you. The same way, this is a relationship which is an external relationship between you and the means. And every day you want to put in that effort, and you want to just, for me, I personally also, apart from my family, my friends that hold me down, I try and keep a practice, like a spiritual practice, that's close to me. I feel it gives me the energy for the day. And at the end of the day, if I've had a day which have been ups and downs, it again resets me, right?
Recalibrates.
People do meditation, people do yoga. You have different ways to adapt, but I think I don't know if there's a one particular answer, and it's a journey. You have to deal with it every day, and hopefully at the end of it we come out on the right side.
And the answer to this basically is what you outlined in a very nice way, to say that what's your true North Star?
Yeah.
Because if your true North Star is about fame and external validation, then it's artificial. And that North Star will just fade away.
It resonates with some people, it doesn't resonate with me.
But irrespective of any level of fame that you look at, it is always temporary.
Always.
There is going to be
Always.
that trajectory
100%.
which will reach that plateau and come down.
100%.
And that's the time when people suffer the most, because
They don't know how to deal with
you
it.
don't know how to deal with that trajectory that's come down.
Yeah.
So take everything with a pinch of salt. That's the way I look
Or
at
a bag
it.
of salt.
Yeah, a bag of salt, depending on where it is.
I don't want to say on camera, it's not fair for them. It doesn't look good, yeah. So the coffee.
That'll come. That'll come.
It's here.
Oh, it's here.
Yeah.
So someone can just give it, yeah. It's like natural. Just happily give it.
The branding has to be this.
All right. This brings us to the penultimate section of this wonderful chat. The subject, the name of the podcast is Lifeboat. Why Lifeboat? Hopefully people know by now.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own definition of Lifeboat. If I have to take it down to what would your definition of Lifeboats mean? How would you describe them? And if you had to take back and give back to the viewers one concept of, along with your essence of Lifeboats, how relevant is it to have good friends as advisors? Does that act as a lifeboat? We've done things together. We've, had a relationship of being good friends as well. How does all of those culminate into shaping an entrepreneur's life? What are the different forms of lifeboats that you think an entrepreneur should have around to ensure that he never sinks or she never sinks?
So, ek to na, I think in today's time, it's become quite a fad to say that, I take pride in the fact that I work X number of hours a day, a week, and each to his own, right? But it doesn't make our life or our job any lesser if I choose to give a proportionate amount of hours for things that balance us, right?
True.
At the end of the day, you want to come out on the right side. It's like a stool. Typically stools will be wobbly, but as long as, and each leg will represent different things. It would be your professional life, your personal life, emotional, whatever. But as long as you acknowledge that the wobble is there, because I'm giving priority to different these things, and you've all sat on that stool and you find that sweet spot, where
yeah.
it doesn't move.
Where it doesn't move.
Because you've understood ki there is a wobble.
Yeah.
Right? But that's working for you. The moment you can't control that wobble, you'll fall off it. So
But then you're riding a bull.
exactly, right? So here it's, for me personally, acknowledging the fact that there was a point in my life, which was, I would say, 6-7 years ago, where I needed to compromise on something, because I couldn't I wouldn't be able to do justice to the crazy hunger and the dreams that I have professionally. Plus, at that point, my girls were just, either just born or just getting young. So spending time with them, because those years will never come back. So I had to make a choice. What do I allow to shorten on my stools? And at that point, I chose that for me, social life, being social for the sake of being social, was perhaps the weakest for me at that point. So I gave it the least amount of time. There are friends who we're still in touch with despite me not being social. They'll come home, we'll just spend 2-3 hours every night or whatever, right? But I don't have to go out for this, every weekend. You know how we used to go out? Like it's
Absolutely.
But I don't feel that I've lost out in life, because my social life, or the social life, continues every weekend when I go out with my kid.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with my choices. The same, we spoke about choices. Your choices will have repercussions to it. You have to live by them. The accountability we spoke about, right? I'm not saying boo-hoo, poor me. I'm not trying to victimize myself. So for me, my lifeboat has been this. This is my, ye nahi tha to kya tha? And I'm happy, because in a few years, my girls will reach the age where they'll say, yaar,
You don't need.
give me time, give me my space. I'm going to shut the door, right? And
Please knock before you enter.
correct. And that will be an interesting time, and we'll deal with it at that time. But ye kabhi wapas nahi aayega. If you ask anyone at the end of their life, their biggest regrets was never that I could have made more money, or I could have,
I could have spent more time.
It's always that. It's always that, right? So for me, I'm very happy. I don't work 16 hours a day. I've never worked 16 hours a day. It's okay. And I don't tell people that that is the definition. You work smart. It's not about the quantity of time you give in or work hard. You work smart. Yeah. 2 घंटे में काम हो रहा है तो कर लो, 10 घंटे में हो रहा है तो कर लो यार. So I'm very happy with where I am. I don't try and say कि यार दुनिया में, it's great when you read all the stories, the successful stories of people who have done that. They chose to give up on other things, and it worked well for them. I didn't want to give up on those. I gave up other things.
Makes sense.
Right? And you learn aspects of their life. You don't have to imitate their life, because then where's your authenticity?
And whatever floats your boat is your lifeboat.
Yeah, exactly. That could be the tagline.
Yeah. No, my tagline is stories that keep us afloat. So this brings us to the last section. Now there are 2 options. You can choose this time. Okay. Last season was all about lifeboat shots, which was inspired by my team from a very Bollywoodish kind of content, where there's a whole bunch of rapid fire. Along with that, there's a very interesting concept of the lifeboat worder, which basically is a word association, where I can give you one word and whatever comes to your mind first is what you need to say. So do you want me to ask you rapid fire questions, or do you want me to ask you word association?
If there's a hamper, then I'm okay with either.
The hamper's love and affection, brother.
I've heard you say this on camera, but everyone who's out there, don't get fooled by it. He's been giving hampers. He's got a big one lined up here. So he says love and affection. That's not true.
True. The hamper comes with also some hourly billings. We'll talk about that separately. Choose.
Whichever.
What's your preference?
I don't know, honestly.
All right, let's go with
leave
it.
it to you.
I actually will go with this, just for this one question, I'm going to go with the rapid fire shots. Because this is going to be very difficult.
Maybe the answer will be a one word. Who knows?
Who knows? I'll tell you why I chose this. Because, normal human beings in normal houses, which are like the size of a house and not the size of a city, would be able to answer this easily.
You sound like those aunties giving tanas since they.
You've been I have this other friend of mine. If you've seen this episode in season 1, Ruchita. So she lives in this semi-mansion in Gurgaon. So I went and told her that, this is like half of Bombay. And when I entered a washroom, I said, "Oh, that's a 2 BHK right there."
That's your building in Borivali.
So the good part here is that you're in Bombay, and I can make the same mockery with you. So what's the most unusual item in your house?
I would say the most unusual thing in this house has got to be with the fact that it's a bit deep. It's not as funny as the question is, but we spoke about having very different thought processes in a 100-year-old company and a 2-year-old company.
Yeah.
I would say an unusual thing is my father, who represents the typical 100-year-old company that you would think. And I, despite learning from that, exterior and thought process would lean more towards a 2-year-old. We're such diverse people.
And coexisting. So
We
beautiful.
coexist. So in a way, I would say that's unusual, but it's worked.
What's your go-to comfort food?
Pizza.
What's the most memorable or weirdest gift that you've received? Can weirdest be memorable as well? Yeah, it could be.
It depends, yeah. I'd say, again, it's a bit soppy, but now my girls are going through this phase. Every day they want to surprise me with a different card. So now, especially when I travel and I'm away for a while, I come back and they've started this thing. So every time I'm away the longer I'm away, the more the number of gifts. So I was away for 3 weeks a few months ago. So when I came back, they with paper and craft, they'd made a wallet for me. They had made and functional wallet. A wallet. They made and they put like little money in it for me, and they said, "Daddy, we've saved up money for you, and we've kept it." Right. So there was a wallet. There were cards. There was a book with pictures in it. So like 15 different things. I go to office for one day and I come back. There's a card ready. So the longer I go, the more the things are. So I think that's memorable because it's sweet.
It's shades of growing up.
It's sweet, right?
So like I have a 6-year-old boy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the difference is that he'll make a card, but he'll say, "Daddy, where's the money?"
Oh,
That's the difference between the boy and the girl, yeah, man. He's a sweetheart and a monster at the same time. What's the most impactful advice that you've ever received?
Be authentic. Be yourself. Those who value you will be with you. Those who value the way you need to perceive yourself and the way you need to project yourselves, they may or may not be with you. So just authenticity becomes very, very central to the way we try and live our life at home or at work. And that's all stemming from that. Just be yourself. Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be fun. What's the most interesting thing on you?
My tattoos.
What's the most important, or I won't say important, what's the most interesting thing about the tattoo? Does it have a thought? Does it have a core?
Each one has a story.
Yeah.
I've now, I don't count.
Which is the closest to your heart?
Hard one.
The first one, I'm assuming?
No, I'd say they all have, like, everything is a story. So this is basically, people ask me, and it's everyone talks about journaling, and when we're growing up, either we've done it or we've seen friends who in the night you'll write something, and when you open that book, you find it locked up in that attic, years later, you don't regret it. You just feel at that time it meant so much to you that it went on your canvas. So for me, everything, I have over 75 hours of ink, right? Because beyond a point, you don't count individual ones. For me, there's a story to every single thing, and it connects to who I am. And people I love, people that guide me, things that mean to me, everything, there's a story, there's a meaning, there's...
We're going to do a session on tattoos separately.
Happily.
I have just one.
Yeah.
If there was an autobiography written on your life, would you rather have it as a book or a comic book?
Comic book.
I agree. What's the most useless skill or talent that you have? Imagine skill and talent being useless. That's like an oxymoron, but my team always thinks of unique things. Useless skill or talent?
I can sleep at a drop of a hat, and I can function with less sleep. So you tell me, yaar, you push, sleep. I'll sleep. I've had coffee. You ask me to sleep, I'll sleep.
That's
So I mean, it's people are like, oh, you know, I need my process to sleep. थक गया तो सो जाओ, उठना है तो उठ जाओ.
If you had to be one video game character,
What?
one video game character, who would you be?
Can I, like Marvel? Yeah, so Iron Man.
Okay, cool. This, I think, is a very nice one. Which was your first music concert?
That I attended to or that I performed at. I used to be a music producer.
I
so
would rather one
where
the one
attended?
where you attended, because I'm not sure
I
about
won't
your
say the
musical
first.
skill.
Yeah, so I won't say the first, but I'd say one or two that have really stood out. So we saw Rahat Fateh Ali Khan in the U2 Arena in London, and to see, you know, thousands of people bouncing in their seats. That man is
insane.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I've seen.
We saw him, and then
Have you seen this guy called Zishan Ali?
no,
you haven't.
unbelievable.
You have to hear him.
I think next on the cards for my wife and I is Coldplay.
Coldplay is good, but here's Zishan Ali. Brilliant.
We'll catch him up. Yeah.
All right, last one. What is that one trend that you've never understood or liked?
So, I don't know if you can call trolling a trend, but it's such a dark
Trolling
side.
makes a topic a trend.
Yeah, but the whole concept of being a troll, right? Being faceless, being a coward.
Unaccountable.
Yaar, how can you be like that, yaar? You know,
That's the hint, guys. Don't troll him.
कुछ फर्क गिरता नहीं.
Well, thank you, brother. It's been
such a
amazing.
pleasure.
Such a pleasure, man. Such a pleasure. Always a pleasure catching up with a friend. And this, as I said, this allows me to have friends at a very different form, at a very different way. And this is my blessing that I am able to do this.
But a quick shout out to you. I think you know you touched upon in between in terms of people say that you are off your on camera, off camera, the same. But you know, I think I want to re-emphasize that, because you make conversations very easy. It doesn't matter whether the camera is there or not. You just make conversations very easy. From the first time, we just like literally randomly caught up, and then to, you know, I think so. A lot of credit needs to go to you. It is what you are. So thank you for that.
I think it's you know, the bald look and the beard just makes us get along.
You know, I actually now I can tell you this, and it's on camera, so I don't mind it. We had the team actually Google who are the bald and bearded guys, and I wanted to befriend only them, and then we filtered, and you were the only one that actually came.
True, man. Makes sense.
You can edit it out.
The bald and the not so beautiful.
It's so cheesy. Please edit that last one out.
This is memory.
Arey.
One for you, one for me.
Too much love.
That's how it is. All right.
My love letter to you, sir.
Mine to you, sir.
यार ये क्या डॉक्टर जैसा हैंडराइटिंग
It says, Dear PM, thanks for the honest chat. Keep being a lifeboat to loads. मेरा ऐसा ही है.
So you guys missed it again. I can't do it again.
Third time नहीं होगा भाई.
You know, your handwriting, you're not a lawyer, you should be a doctor.
Yeah.
Because probably only your team can understand.
Maybe they can, maybe they
Because
don't.
pharmacists can understand doctors, so your team can understand this thing. But thank you, it's really sweet, man.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Good call, we took it down.
Yeah.
Light भी आ गया.
Beautiful call. And the way it'll come out is insane. How does one